Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real today. This right here is what 99% of women never truly understand, not because they can't, but because nobody ever taught them how powerful they really are. See, a man doesn't cry because you chase him, beg him, or try to force him to see your worth. A man cries missing you when your absence hits harder than your presence ever demanded. Most women underestimate the power of emotional distance when it comes from a place of self-respect instead of manipulation, and this misunderstanding quietly shapes the way relationships unfold. Emotional distance is not about playing games, ghosting, or trying to punish someone. It is about understanding the value of your energy and choosing where it goes. When a woman is overly available, constantly giving, constantly initiating, constantly proving her love, she unintentionally teaches a man to take her presence for granted. It's human nature. Whatever is always there starts to feel ordinary, even when it's extraordinary. The power lies in stepping back, not because you want to make him jealous, but because you finally recognize your own worth. When a woman embraces emotional distance from a place of dignity, she creates a shift in how a man perceives her. A man may not realize your value when you're always accessible, but the moment you stop over-investing, the moment you stop trying to fix everything, the moment you stop apologizing for wanting more, he feels something change in the atmosphere. Your absence speaks in a language louder than your presence ever did. Suddenly, he notices the quietness, the lack of your messages, the absence of your laughter, and it forces him to confront something he avoided. You mattered more to him than he admitted. This kind of distance doesn't produce anger, it produces clarity. It gives him space to reflect instead of react. Men are not always emotionally expressive in the moment. They often need separation to understand their own feelings. And when a woman stops filling every gap, stops reaching out to make sure he's okay, stops stretching herself thin to keep the connection alive, he begins to feel the weight of what he once had. This is where the longing begins. This is where regret grows. This is where a man starts questioning himself. Why isn't she calling? Why isn't she checking in? Why does it feel like something important is missing? A woman's emotional distance done from self-worth creates mystery. It shows she has a life beyond him, that she won't collapse emotionally if he steps back, that her happiness is not dependent on his attention. This is deeply attractive to a man, not because she is unavailable, but because she is whole. A woman who respects herself enough to distance herself from inconsistency becomes unforgettable. She becomes the woman he compares others to, the standard he didn't realize he needed, the calm he didn't appreciate until it was gone. When a woman chooses emotional distance for the right reasons, she isn't trying to manipulate him. She's simply choosing not to abandon herself. And that, more than anything, is what makes a man finally see her differently. It activates a deeper emotional response, a realization of how valuable her presence was. This kind of emotional distance is powerful because its purpose isn't to control him, it's to reclaim her own heart. A man misses the woman who prioritizes her own life, not the one who makes him the center of her world. And this truth is something many women overlook because they are taught that love means constant availability. But in reality, emotional attraction grows when a woman maintains her individuality, her purpose, and her rhythm in life. When she has her own goals, her own routines, her own interests, and she does not abandon them for a man, she naturally becomes more valuable and more memorable. Men are drawn to women who are rooted in themselves, who don't lose their identity simply because someone entered their life. A woman who prioritizes her life does not do it to push him away. She does it because she understands the importance of balance. She knows that love is a part of her life, not the entire structure. When a woman revolves her entire world around a man, she unintentionally removes the very thing that creates desire, space. There is no mystery left, no excitement, no energy to chase. She becomes predictable, overly accessible, and emotionally dependent. And while her intention is love, what he feels is pressure. A man starts to take her for granted, not because he's bad, but because human nature responds differently to what is constantly available. But when a woman has her own life, her own ambitions, and refuses to shrink herself to fit into his comfort zone, she radiates a different kind of power. Her presence feels like a gift, not an obligation, and her absence feels meaningful. Men are deeply drawn to women who have something to lose, something to do, and something to become. When she is busy becoming the best version of herself, she gives him something to admire from afar. And admiration is one of the strongest emotional connections a man can feel for a woman. When she prioritizes her growth, he starts noticing the things he once overlooked, the way she carries herself, her discipline, her independence, her quiet confidence. He realizes she isn't waiting for him to complete her. She's building a life that anyone would be lucky to be a part of. And that's when the longing starts. He begins imagining what life would be like by her side, not because she begged for his time, but because she built a life worth joining. A woman with purpose and passion naturally becomes rare. Her energy is not desperate, it's magnetic. She doesn't chase, she attracts. She doesn't cling, she stands tall. And when she steps back into her own rhythm, when she stops sacrificing her goals for a man who hasn't earned that sacrifice, something shifts inside him. He starts realizing how empty the days feel without her presence. He starts missing the balance she brought, the lightness she carried, and the strength she showed. He sees that she didn't lose herself in him, and that makes him crave her even more, because a man doesn't miss the woman who abandoned everything for him. He misses the woman who had everything and still chose him until he gave her a reason not to. When your actions show high standards, a man feels the absence of your energy even more deeply, because standards are not words you speak, they are boundaries you live by. A woman who truly understands her worth doesn't beg someone to treat her right. She simply lives in a way that makes it clear what she will accept and what she will not. And this is where the real shift happens. A man might ignore your complaints. He might dismiss your explanations, and he might overlook your warnings, but he cannot ignore your standards in action. When you stop overgiving, stop accepting breadcrumbs, stop settling for half effort, a man feels the difference instantly. He may not show it at first, but he feels it in the change of your tone, the quietness in your energy, and the strength in your decisions. High standards are not about being demanding or controlling. They are about emotional self-respect. They announce to the world, I will not shrink myself for love, and I will not accept treatment that harms my spirit. A man who truly has potential will rise to meet those standards. A man who doesn't will fall away, and when he falls away, he will feel the emptiness that follows, especially when he experiences other people who do not carry the same strength, the same substance, the same self-respect that you quietly lived with. Your standards become the reason he remembers you long after you walk away. A woman with high standards isn't hard to love, she's just hard to manipulate. She doesn't argue about what she deserves, she simply becomes unavailable to anything less. When a man experiences this kind of energy, it creates a sense of accountability within him. He starts reflecting on his own actions. He starts noticing the difference between your consistency and the inconsistency he gave you. He starts realizing that you weren't asking for too much, you were simply asking for the bare minimum that a grown, emotionally mature man should already be offering. And when you finally step back, when you don't chase, when you don't try to convince him of your value, your absence becomes a mirror. He sees himself clearly, maybe for the first time. He sees the imbalance in the relationship. He sees how much emotional labor you silently carried. And most of all, he feels the sudden quietness where your warmth used to be. That quietness can be louder than any argument. It nudges him in the middle of the night. It hits him during small moments, like when he picks up his phone expecting your message, but finds nothing. That silence is your standard speaking. A man begins to miss a woman more deeply when he realizes she wasn't difficult. She was disciplined. She wasn't asking constantly. She was consistent, and she wasn't trying to control him. She was teaching him how to love her through her actions. When that kind of woman walks away because her standards weren't met, a man doesn't just feel disappointed, he feels the weight of losing someone he will not easily replace. Her absence becomes a lesson, one that echoes long after she's gone. Mystery, scarcity, and emotional peace create a natural longing in a man's heart because they tap into the deeper psychology of how attraction truly works. A woman who carries these qualities doesn't force a man to miss her. She simply becomes unforgettable through the way she moves, the way she chooses herself, and the way she refuses to create chaos. Mystery doesn't mean being secretive or confusing. It means not giving all of yourself away too quickly. It means keeping parts of your life sacred, maintaining boundaries, and allowing a man to earn deeper access to your heart. When a woman doesn't overshare, doesn't over-explain, and doesn't rush emotional intimacy, she becomes someone a man feels compelled to understand. She becomes a puzzle he wants to solve, not because she is complicated, but because she is layered, and men crave depth more than they admit. Scarcity adds to this feeling. When a woman's energy isn't available 24/7, when she is not constantly messaging, calling, or seeking validation, a man begins to feel the weight of her absence even during moments when she is still present in his life. He realizes her time has value, her presence has value, and he must rise to the standard if he wants to remain part of her world. Scarcity does not mean withholding affection. It means not giving yourself to someone who hasn't earned the right to receive you fully. It means valuing quality interaction over constant interaction. Men respect what they have to work for, not what is handed to them freely. And then there is emotional peace, which is more powerful than any physical attraction. A peaceful woman is magnetic because she brings calm into a man's chaotic world. She listens without trying to control him. She loves without trying to imprison him, and she communicates without attacking. Her presence feels like a soft place to rest, not a battlefield. But emotional peace also means she will walk away from anything that threatens her inner stability. A woman who chooses peace over drama naturally sets herself apart, because most people today operate from insecurity, fear, or ego. When a man experiences a woman who is calm, confident, and grounded, she becomes a rare treasure in his eyes. These three qualities, mystery, scarcity, and peace, combine to create a kind of emotional imprint on a man's heart. He starts thinking about her when she's not around. He wonders what she's doing, what she's thinking, and why she feels so different from everyone else. He realizes she's not trying to prove herself, not trying to impress him, and not trying to win him. And that is exactly what makes her memorable. He feels her absence as strongly as he once felt her presence, maybe even more. This kind of woman doesn't chase love, she attracts it. She doesn't force loyalty, she inspires it. And when she steps back, even slightly, a man feels that distance like a cold wind, reminding him of how warm her presence once was. Through her mystery, her value, and her peace, she becomes the woman he misses long after she's gone. Pulling back with grace, not anger, activates reflection and regret in a man's mind, because it shows a level of emotional maturity that he doesn't often encounter. When a woman gets hurt, the natural instinct is to react, to argue, confront, cry, or demand answers. But a woman who chooses grace over chaos sends a message without raising her voice. She communicates through silence, poise, and self-respect. And this form of distance carries far more power than any emotional outburst ever could. A man might ignore shouting, but he cannot ignore a change in energy. He cannot ignore the sudden calm from a woman who once cared deeply. He cannot ignore the shift in her behavior when she stops fighting for the connection and starts fighting for her peace instead. Grace is not weakness, it is clarity. It's the moment when a woman realizes that continuing to push will not change anything, and that protecting her heart matters more than winning a temporary argument. When she pulls back with grace, she isn't punishing him, she is honoring herself. And this becomes the very moment he starts to see her differently. A man may convince himself that he can handle losing a woman until she actually stops trying, until she stops explaining, until she stops reaching out, until she stops waiting. That calmness becomes the echo that follows him long after the conversation ends. When a woman withdraws emotionally without hostility, it forces a man to sit with his own actions. There is no distraction of drama, no shouting to drown out the truth, no blame to shift. He is left with silence, the most uncomfortable teacher, and in that silence, he begins replaying every word, every moment, every sign he ignored. He starts to question what he failed to appreciate, what he didn't prioritize, and why her energy feels different now. The absence of her effort becomes the presence of his regret. He realizes she didn't leave because she stopped caring. She left because she stopped forcing something that wasn't being reciprocated. A graceful withdrawal also shows emotional mastery. A woman who can step back without bitterness demonstrates strength that is rare. She is strong enough to love, but wise enough to let go. She is soft enough to care, but smart enough to walk away. This duality is what makes her unforgettable. A man may meet many women, but the one who loved deeply yet refused to lose herself is the one he remembers. She becomes the standard by which he measures others, not because she demanded that position, but because she earned it through her dignity. With grace, she shows him what consequences look like without cruelty. Instead of slamming the door, she simply closes it gently, and that quiet exit is far more powerful. A man begins to feel her absence like a slow ache creeping into his thoughts at unexpected times. He remembers her kindness, her patience, her effort, and realizes he didn't match it. And nothing awakens longing in a man more deeply than the realization that he lost a woman who never wanted to hurt him. She only wanted to be valued. Or a man cries, missing the woman who brought value, joy, and authenticity into his life, and then suddenly stopped overgiving because that kind of loss hits him in a way he never expects. When a woman shows up with real care, real warmth, real consistency, and real emotional presence, she becomes a part of a man's everyday world, even if he never admits it out loud. She becomes the good morning he looks forward to, the comfort he didn't realize he depended on, the safe place he came back to after a long, exhausting day. Her laughter becomes the sound that softens him. Her kindness becomes a memory he carries, and her energy becomes the familiar comfort he didn't know he was relying on. A man may not acknowledge her value while she is giving because people often overlook what they think will never leave. But when she finally steps back and stops pouring herself into a cup that never poured back, that is when the reality hits him, and it hits him hard. What makes this kind of woman unforgettable is not perfection, it's authenticity. She showed up not as someone trying to impress, but as someone who genuinely cared. She listened with intention. She gave without manipulation. She loved without calculation. She offered peace in a world full of noise. She made space for him when he felt overwhelmed. She understood him in moments when he didn't even understand himself. This type of presence creates emotional memory, and emotional memory is the one thing a man cannot escape. Long after she stops showing up, he replays the way she made him feel safe, supported, seen. She wasn't loud about her love. She expressed it in the soft ways that linger long after they're gone. When she finally stops overgiving, it's not out of anger or punishment. It's because she reaches a point where she realizes she cannot continue pouring into someone who isn't pouring back. She realizes her kindness was becoming a routine he expected instead of a gift he cherished. She realizes her heart deserves reciprocity, not exhaustion, and this shift creates a storm inside a man's mind. At first, he might not understand why she suddenly feels distant. He might assume she's just busy or distracted. But as the days go by, he begins to feel the absence of the small things, her consistency, her warmth, her emotional support. He checks his phone and it's quiet. He waits for her to comfort him like she used to, but she has stopped picking up the emotional load. This silence creates a discomfort he cannot ignore. The truth is that men cry not because they lost attention, but because they lost the woman who gave them a kind of love that nourished them. Men feel deeply even if they don't always show it. And when they lose a woman who brought light into their life, the darkness feels heavier than they expected. He begins to understand that she wasn't ordinary. Her effort wasn't typical. Her presence wasn't replaceable. He may try to distract himself, but nothing feels the same. No one else speaks with the same depth. No one else listens with the same softness. No one else has the same calming presence. He starts to realize she was rare, not because she was perfect, but because she was real. This realization can break a man down. It makes him reflect on the moments he didn't appreciate, the times he didn't reciprocate, the opportunities he wasted thinking she would always be there. And when he understands that her absence is not a temporary pause, but a reclaiming of her own worth, he feels a sadness that often turns into tears. He misses not just her presence, but the version of himself that only existed when he was loved by her. That is the kind of loss that stays with a man long after she has moved on, the kind that teaches him the value of a woman he should have treasured while he had the chance.